Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
I want to introduce you to a human that loved us. I want to introduce you to a man that I never personally met. But I am thoroughly convinced of his matchless love for us. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Farag Muhammad came to us from the holy city of Mecca. I can't prove it or disprove it. We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're not brutalized because we're Catholic. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Muhammad Ali and took away that slave name of Cassius Clay. Now I can go all over the world. All over the world.
This story begins in 1930 during the Great Depression. A mysterious man by the name of Wallace Fard Muhammad made himself known in America in Black Bottom, Detroit, to so-called Negroes.
Black Bottom neighborhood was once a cultural hub for the African American population of Detroit. Home to great migrationers and beyond, the Black Bottom, though often referred to as Paradise Valley, became a must-stop for jazz stardom. Its destruction devastated the black community, further contributing to the tense and even hostile relationship between white and black Detroiters. Recent efforts to promote the rich cultural heritage of African Americans in Detroit reflect the healing of decades of targeting African American neighborhoods, such as the Black Bottom. The Great Migration and the creation of the Black Bottom. The Great Migration culturally changed cities all over the northern United States. Detroit was greatly affected due to the influx of automobile industry jobs and Henry Ford's 1914 promise, all employees will make at least $5 per day. The African Americans who migrated for these jobs needed a place to live, and they found homes in a former German ghetto called the Black Bottom, originally named for the rich, dark soil on which early settlers farmed. The neighborhood was defined by Verner Street on the north, Hastings Street on the east, Madison on the south, and John R. on the west, with Gratiot Road cutting across the middle. The increase of Detroit's black population was extreme, going from 5,741 in 1910 to 40,838 in 1920, and then skyrocketing to 120,066 in 1930. In 1922, approximately 3,500 African Americans were moving to the city each month, changing the cultural climate of the city. These African Americans dealt with extreme racism, discrimination, and needed a safe haven in order to establish happy, fulfilling lives. Neighborhoods became communities, and the Black Bottom quickly became the cultural hotspot for Detroit blacks.
During that time, he met a man by the name of Elijah Poole, and Elijah ultimately converted and became a student of Wallace Fard Muhammad and changed his name to Elijah Muhammad. So let's hear him as he tells his story.
When I met him, I looked at him and he, well, there's it just came to me like this, that this is the Son of Man that the Bible say that prophesy that will come in the last days of the world, and that I couldn't get that out of me. And I shook hands with him, and I said to him, I say, you are the one that the Bible prophesies that will come at the end of the world under the name Son of Man and under the name the second coming of Jesus. And so he looked at me a little stern, and then he smiled and he put his head down to my beside my head and whispered in my ear and said these words. He said, yes, I am the one, but who knows that but yourself?
So, the question among many circles is, how can man be a God and how can God be a man? So I'll let the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad answer this for you.
The New Testament, which is called the Testament of Love, talks about God putting on flesh and coming among people.
His mother, he says, was a white woman, and his father was a black man. Yes, sir. He taught us that he was born in Mecca, Arabia, and that he had come in and out of this country for about 20 years before ever that he made himself known to us.
And I also would like to add some historical and scientific context to our theology by our student minister, Dr. Wesley Muhammad.
The Hindu motif of the Trimurti is very powerful. We learned that the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are one God in different modalities. And they have different, this picture illustrates the required iconographic representation of these three gods. Meaning if you want to make a representation of either one of these gods, certain things must be in place or you violate the iconographic code and you disrespect the god. So their Vahan or animal symbol has to be there. Brahma the creator, this is the same God, we are told. When he is the creator, when he emerges as the creator, Brahma, he has to be foreheaded in the picture for reasons I can't get to right now, but it's very important. But it'd take me too far left field, but he must be gold. Because that creator God is that luminous God, and his body must reflect that luminosity. But he transforms into Vishnu because his luminosity was scorching the earth. So he had to correct that. So he transforms into Vishnu, and Vishnu has to be painted that sapphire blue, denoting that Brahma's the creator, Vishnu is called the preserver. He preserves creation because the black bodily veil shades creation from the vicious luminosity of Brahma. So Brahma transforms into Vishnu, takes on a blue body. But then the age ends and Shiva comes. Vishnu transforms into Shiva. And Shiva must always be painted white. Now Shiva is Vishnu and Vishnu is Brahma. We're talking about the same God, but we're enumerating certain transformations. So Shiva, Brahma is called creator, Vishnu is called preserver, and Shiva is called what? Anybody know? Destroyer. Next, please. The destroyer. And true to the grammar of the common theology of ancient Near East, he has a bull, but his bull can't be black. His bull must be white because the bull hide skin denotes the skin of the deity. So Shiva the destroyer, white Shiva, the destroyer, who destroys wickedness, that under Vishnu's reign, with the shade offered by Vishnu, the relief offered by Vishnu, wickedness was allowed to run amok on the earth. And that wickedness is dealt with at the end of the era, when that blue-black Vishnu transforms into that white Shiva. And he comes destroying the enemies of the gods. So we have this black Osiris who dies, yet posthumously he gives birth to a white son, Horus, that will vindicate his father, kill his enemies, and be the agent of his dead black god's resurrection. And we have the next, please. And we have this blue-black god, Vishnu, who gives birth or transforms at the end of time, to this white destroyer god, Shiva. Please. What's the point? Next. I don't care what you think of this individual, whether you accept him or God or not. That's not my subject tonight. This is my point. This man, he came here and he taught a very peculiar doctrine. Very peculiar. And nobody else taught then or not. Yes, there are different schools of thought that have different aspects, but they don't teach what he taught. What did he teach? Let me run through it for you. There's no mistake. See, he said that in the beginning there was blackness. And there was an atom hidden in the blackness. And that atom was the origin of God. He said that God's body emerged from that atom. And the first emerged body was a body of light.
It was Master Fard Muhammad that took the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Think about this, Brother Sarnetta. Just think about this math. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad never even made it out of the 4th grade. He went to the 4th grade. How old are you in the 4th grade? 10? So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had the formal education of a 10-year-old child. Yet he taught about the moon being once a part of the earth before the scientists ever knew it. Yet he taught that the earth was 35,000 miles in circumference at one time, now 24,896. He taught that there was 196,940,000 square miles of land and water. 139,685,000 of it being the water, with 68,634,000 square miles being Pacific Ocean, 41,321,000 square miles being the Atlantic Ocean, 29,430,000 square miles being the Indian Ocean, 1 million square miles of lakes and rivers, with 57,255,000 square miles of land sticking up out of it, Earth weighing 6 sextillion tons, which was a unit followed by 21 zeros. This the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a wisdom and a science that the scholars and scientists of religion and science have never been able to catch up to, yet he had the education, formal education, of someone that only was 10 years old. Here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad met Master Fard Muhammad. Think about this, Brother Sarnetta. He was only taught by him for 3 years and 4 months. 3 years and 4 months. Now you take anybody that goes to school for 3 years and 4 months, I don't care who the teacher is, and show me what has been their fruit of their labor after 3 years and 4 months. Matter of fact, find me anybody that went to school for 10, 12 years that say they are Dr. So-and-so. They can't heal like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has healed. So who did he meet? And what did that man teach him that he was able to absorb a wisdom in 3 years and 4 months with only a 10-year-old child's formal education? And he went from a 10-year-old formally educated child in knowledge to being the wisest man walking among us, to having one dime in his pocket, an alcohol problem, and on welfare, to being a man that got not off of alcohol just personally, but got millions of people off of all forms of drugs, not a dime, but built an $80 million empire in 1974.
Master Fard Muhammad made his appearance in Black Bottom, Detroit, and he found his little helper, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He taught him the supreme wisdom, and he taught him the actual facts, the student enrollment, how to eat to live. But the most controversial of all of his teachings that he gave him was the teaching of the mother plane, or the wheels within wheels. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a 4th grade education, but he was preaching about the mother plane in the 1930s and 40s before they were ever reported by government officials. He was the only one teaching about the mother plane around that time. And in 1942, not long after Pearl Harbor, there was a story that broke out in the media called the Battle of Los Angeles. And 3 months after the Battle of Los Angeles incident, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was taken into custody by the FBI upon executive order given from the President of the United States of America.
The news of the world, Wednesday, February 25th. Once again, Columbia's correspondents in world capitals and in the fighting zones in the Western Pacific are ready to give you the latest news direct by shortwave radio.
And now for news of our own West Coast, we take you to Los Angeles and the report of Byron Palmer. Anti-aircraft guns went into action against unidentified aircraft in the Los Angeles area shortly after 3 a.m. Pacific Wartime this morning. The anti-aircraft guns began barking during a blackout ordered by the 4th Interceptor Command at 2:25 a.m. The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach. Army officials declined to comment on the possibility that the object might have been a blimp. However, it required nearly 30 minutes to travel some 25 miles, far slower than an airplane. Watchers on the rooftop of the Columbia Broadcasting Building in the heart of Hollywood could plainly see the flashes of guns and searchlights sweeping the skies in a wide arc along the coastal area. Concussion of the shells could be felt in downtown Los Angeles, 15 miles away. U.S. Army planes quickly took to the
Elijah Muhammad started learning and teaching of this great wheel called the Mother Plane around 1932. 10 years later, in 1942, after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, the temple, as it was called at that time, was raided by law enforcement officials under the guidance of the FBI. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's home was also raided, and the teachings that Master Farad Muhammad had left with him were taken from the home and the temple. Later, he was questioned by the FBI on the drawing of the wheel and his writing about it that they had taken from the temple, and he explained to the government of the United States and to the FBI its aim and purpose, who made it, and why it is now above America. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it was a masterpiece of mechanics and engineering, and that nothing like this has ever been seen before. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it is the greatest military weapon ever developed in the annals of the history of Allah, God, and man in this universe.
The United States government has been having information related to the Mother Plane because they confiscated it from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the 1940s, and they have been doing a massive cover-up, keeping the truth away from the masses.
It has been a secret, above top secret, in the United States and in governments around the world. But more recently, governments have decided to expose to their populace the reality of the existence of these so-called unidentified flying objects.
Do you think it's time now to let everybody know about this? Are we ready for this?
Whether those in power think it's time or not is immaterial or irrelevant, because these wheels are now being seen over the major cities. And when human beings of intelligence can look up and see these phenomenon, or this phenomena, how can you keep hiding it in the midst of thousands upon thousands of people now seeing them? And in this modern age of technology, with recording instruments in a telephone that is now in the hands of millions and billions of people, then when they show up, the people film it. So now, what can you say now? You could say it was swamp gas yesterday. You could say it was a balloon. You could say it was all these explain away techniques of masterful liars and artful deceivers. But today, it is time, and now it is being made manifest. So somebody has to answer the question, what are they? Why are they there? Why have they been over all of the atomic installations, not only in America, but all over the world? Why has the power from these so-called unidentified flying objects been able to nullify the power of rockets to go up in case there is an atomic warfare? The power that these machines exercise, which America has not fully seen yet. I think it is more than time that the populace of our planet should know where these wheels are from, what their real purpose is, who is behind it all. Then the people can either accept it or reject it.
Commander David Fravor still can't explain what he says he saw that day. November 2004, the Navy fighter pilot was on a training mission west of San Diego when he was ordered to check out something in the water not far away. On a clear day, over a smooth ocean, he saw the object, waves breaking over it, and says he saw something hovering above it.
It's randomly moving north, south, east, west, just random, just stopping, going the other direction, like you could do with a helicopter, but a little bit more abrupt. It looks like a 40-foot-long tic-tac with no wings.
Fravor says he and his four-man team tracked the object for several minutes until it just disappeared. Tonight, CNN has learned the Pentagon had a secretive program to research UFOs like the one Fravor spotted. The project was called the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, run by an official named Luis Elizondo.
I think this is a national security imperative. We have clear things that we do not understand how they work, operating in areas that we can't control.
Are you in your position going to ask the American government to open the files like other countries have done around this extraterrestrial or so-called wheels phenomenon? What is going to be the official position of Islam in the United States?
It doesn't make any difference to me whether they open them or don't open them, because it's going to be so evident. These wheels will be seen by the American people by the millions in a few days. So whether they open the files or not, how can you continue to lie in the face of the people seeing with their eyes what you have been trying to hide? It makes no difference to me. I wouldn't care whether they said it or said it not. I know the truth of it, and soon the American people will know the truth of it.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along. Very seriously. Nick Pope is a journalist who has spent years researching UFOs for the British government. He says that UFOs aren't just real. They also frequently come close to crashing into commercial airliners, among other things. Nick Pope joins us tonight. Nick, thank you very much for coming on. So it's really not a question of, do governments believe UFOs are real? Yes, they do. The United States government does. The British government does. The question is, do they have any idea what they are, where they're from?
No, we don't. We keep an open mind on it. We don't rule anything off, take nothing off the table with this. Our point really is that whatever these things turn out to be, there is a serious defense, national security, and air safety issue here.
Yes. Well, so that's kind of the nub of it, and that's where my interest comes from. So why aren't governments encouraging the population to, as they say about terrorism, if you see something, say something, report sightings to the government so we can make sense of this potential threat?
Well, they should be, and that's what we certainly did at the Ministry of Defence for many years. We took it very seriously. Our own pilots were seeing these things. We were having radar operators track them. And we knew, again, through intelligence and through open source material, we knew that the Russians and the Chinese and others were working on this too. The problem was that just the pop culture baggage from the term UFO, flying saucer, little green men, people don't take it seriously. But they should.
Jimmy Carter. 2 years before, former US President Jimmy Carter became governor of Georgia, he had an extraordinary encounter with an unidentified flying object. The exact date of the incident is uncertain, but what is known is it was one evening in 1969, and Carter was preparing to give a speech at a Lions Club meeting in Leary, Georgia, when one of the guests alerted him to a strange object about 30 degrees above the horizon. Carter later described the object as a very bright white light that appeared to be moving towards where he was standing before suddenly stopping. It then changed colour, first to blue, then red, and then back to white. The object then disappeared into the distance, as witnessed by at least 12 other people that evening. In 1973, the future president filed a report on the incident to the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, detailing his claim of seeing a UFO. And although he did not necessarily believe he had witnessed an alien spacecraft, he still could not explain the sighting. During his presidential campaign in 1976, Carter made no secret of his belief in UFOs and often described what he saw. He also vowed never again to ridicule anyone who claimed to have seen a UFO, and promised that if he were elected president, he would encourage the government to release every piece of information about UFOs to the public. However, after winning the presidency, Carter went back on this promise, saying it may have defense implications and pose a threat to national security. So was he silenced once he became president? Did the briefing all new leaders receive when they take office make him realise that this was too big of an issue to reveal to the public? This one adds some serious weight to the theories surrounding the US government's secrets and the truth about what they really know about UFOs and extraterrestrial life.
Well, a UFO is an unidentified flying object, and when I was back as a peanut farmer and the head of a Lions clubs in the southwest Georgia, I and about 25 others saw something in the air that changed colors and was round and came and left. We couldn't figure out what it was. It was unidentified as far as we were concerned.
Why are all these presidents and high-ranking officials seeing these powers? Don't you know
Ronald Reagan, the great communicator?
While he was governor of California, he witnessed these crafts. And he said, and I quote, "We followed it for several minutes. It was a bright white light. We followed it to Bakersfield, and all of a sudden, to our utter amazement, it went straight up into the heavens." That's what he said to a reporter who was working, I think, for Newsweek at the time. But you know, Reagan had been fascinated with UFOs ever since. That was when he was governor. He took his fascinations and his concerns all the way to office with him when he became.
Suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe.
For those of us who grew up in the 80s, you may remember Reagan with this thing called Star Wars. That's what Star Wars was all about. Now, I was a young boy in the 80s now. I was in elementary school, but I remember always hearing about Star Wars on television, you know. What was this? He wasn't talking about the movie. He was talking about trying to defend and go, even possibly go to war with these crafts that he could not explain. But look, Reagan's witness account of the UFO worried him so much that he started, while in office, and those who grew up in the 80s may remember this, he started to rely heavily on astrology in making his decisions, to the point where he literally hired his astrologist, this lady named Joan Quigley, to basically manage and run a lot of his office affairs. He did not know what the hell was going on. Hell, he needed explanations. What's going on? You see, but that's already written in the scriptures. You all remember Herod?
Go ahead, brother.
Herod called on his astrologers. He even called on some of his soothsayers because he wanted to find out what does this mean with these stars going on over here. Huh? Something was going on while Herod was in office, and he needed something to be explained. So he started to get so worried, and he got so manipulative that he, just like Herod in the scriptures, show me where this child is so that I can worship him. But Herod had another ulterior motive in mind. Because while Reagan was on the scene in the 80s as president, there was another man who was talking about these UFOs. There was another man who was a top student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the man who really started it all. There was another man in Reagan's midst who in 1985 had an experience and went public with it while Reagan was in office.
Elijah Muhammad told us that Farad Muhammad came, as it is written of him, without observation, as a thief in the night, and that he was in fact the long-awaited Son of Man that would come from the east to the west to seek and to save that which was lost. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the black man and black woman of America were and are the lost member of the aboriginal nation of our planet from the tribe of Shabazz. This man, Master Farad Muhammad, pointed out to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad a dreadful looking plane in the sky, a half a mile by a half a mile, a human-built planet on which were 1,500 little planes that were up there in fulfillment of Ezekiel's vision that you find in the book of Ezekiel, the first chapter, from the 1st to the 28th verses. When you go home, you read now. This is a scholarly teaching today. You must read, you must study, because every word that I say, you will meet it shortly. Ezekiel had a vision of a wheel within a wheel, a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Farad Muhammad taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for 3 years and 4 months, night and day, and then left him with the mission and the burden of raising the black man and woman of America up from a dead level to a living perpendicular. And his work is called in the scriptures of the Quran and Bible the resurrection of the dead. Not the dead in the cemeteries or the graveyards of America and the world, but a people that have eyes but cannot see, have ears but cannot hear, have tongues but they cannot speak, a people that have been killed mentally, morally, spiritually, politically, economically, and otherwise. His mission was to raise this people up and place them back where they once were, on top of civilization, which we have not been for 50,000 years. He pointed out a blue and a red star that signifies complete and universal change, a star that only appears once every 50,000 years. We are in the midst of it now, a complete universal change. The world wants change. The world needs change.